So the one thing in my business that I always used to hold, I suppose, true was that everything in my business had to be done by me and nobody else could do it any better. And in hindsight, I now know that that's a truckload of crap. And there are so many things which I was trying to do, which I just wasn't the best person to do. One of those was handling my phone calls. And it took me being in business 6 years to actually take the plunge and work with a call handling company to take that one role away from me. And to say it was a relief is an absolute understatement. Now, that company are called the Office Genie, and they're based in Northampton, and they're brilliant. And had I still had a clinic, I'd still be working with them now. What I did recently was I actually got on a call with Sarah, who's one of the staff there, and we had a really good conversation around the Office Genie, around the benefits of the Office Genie, the kind of stuff they can offer, the benefits of call handling, and really just to get an idea of the services they provide and the difference it makes to people. And if you are thinking about outsourcing any of the tasks that you do, I'd definitely have a look and see whether outsourcing your call handling is something which works for you. So check out this video interview with Sarah. So I am joined on this video by the lovely Sarah from an organisation called the Office Genie, and Sarah's going to tell you all about the Office Genie in a moment. I first met the Office Genies back in 2015 when I was just at that transition point in my business and realised that it wasn't as good as it could be, and I needed to do something different. And Sarah's going to tell you lots of stories about what she does and what the business does and how they help people, but in a nutshell, I was struggling to keep up with all of my calls. So I was having patients call me while I was with other patients, and I couldn't answer the call. And by the time I got to call them back, they either were annoyed they'd had to wait, or they'd gone somewhere else. And for many years, I told myself I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford to have someone take my calls for me. And when I took that jump with the Office Genius to get them to take my calls, to get you lovely to take my calls, it made a massive difference because it paid for itself in no time at all. And it took a lot of stress off me. So that's kind of my short story as to how I met the Office Genie. But Sarah, tell us about yourself and tell us about the business. I want to know a bit about you as well.
I joined the Office Genie 5 years ago now, nearly 5 years ago. I started off as Jackie's PA. And Jackie is the business owner.
We should say that Jackie doesn't like to come on video, shouldn't we, really? But that's cool.
She absolutely doesn't like being on video at all. So Jackie started the business about 14 years ago now. And the reason that she started the business is because she spotted a gap in the market. Her husband is a painter and decorator. And he would come home from work and he would constantly be whinging about the fact that his phone was going all the time and he was up and down the ladder trying to answer his phone. One time he dropped his phone in a bucket of paint trying to answer it. So she spotted this gap in the market, and she had decided that, you know, she had had enough of doing job interviews. She couldn't be doing job interviews anymore. And so she decided to start the Office Genie. So that was 14 years ago. And something I'm very, very proud of is that we still, 14 years later, we still have our very first customer on board with us.
Oh, fantastic.
For 40, you know, in a customer service setting is amazing. It is really, really amazing. And the beauty of us is that we are a relatively small team. We're not a big call centre. And because of that, we can tailor things to the way that each individual clinic, each individual person wants to run their call handling. So if all you want us to do is literally take a name and a number and a message, we can do that. But if you want us to book your appointments for you, we can do that, as long as you've got some software that we can use to book appointments. So there's loads out there, like there's Clinico, Vartu, there's all of those kinds of different softwares out there. Practice Pal, that's another one that we've used, Practice Manager, you know, all of those. As long as you've got something like that, we can book appointments for you, so you can be in treating your patients without having to worry about the fact that while you're treating your patients, the phone's ringing, and that's yet another lot of business lost. And you know yourself, especially in podiatry, if people are in pain, they're just going to go to the next person on the list. They're not going to wait for you to call back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
100%.
that's why it is so, and I do get incredibly cross with people who say that there's no space in their business for call answering, call handling.
Yeah,
Because
it's interesting, isn't it? And I just to interject, I was having a conversation with one of the people I coach about this, and they have I was going to say they have a unique situation, but we all have a unique situation. So they do home visits, and actually a lot of the stuff they do, because their books are pretty full. They don't need to take any more people on. There is that little bit of flexibility, and actually for them, maybe a call solution doesn't necessarily, it isn't needed at the moment. But I think you're right. I think there is an opportunity for somebody, if taking a volume of calls, if there's an opportunity for just that one call to come through and show them amazing customer service, it makes a massive difference. But I would agree. I think it can fit into everyone. I think fit into everyone's business.
And it's just offering that extra little piece of customer service. So, for example, your client who's not looking at building their client bases, that's fine. But if they're looking at consolidating their reputation for customer service, if they're looking at consolidating that word of mouth, the fact that even if someone needs to cancel an appointment, they've got through to a person.
Yeah.
And it stops, once people speak to a person, it stops the repeat calls coming in, because the amount of times that your voicemails will be the same 4 or 5 people because they've not been able to talk to you.
Yeah.
Whereas if they've talked to a person, it's being done, it's being dealt with, and they don't have to worry about it. And it's all, all lovely for them, and they feel so much more confident in you and your ability to run a business rather than do the actual podiatry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we always kid ourselves, and I did a video on this a while ago. We kid ourselves that we're the best people to do every job in our business. And I got my degree and came out into the world and started a private business, and I was like, here I am, I'm here, you can come and see me. And people were like, who are you? And you think that you can't afford it, you think that you're the best person to do it. And okay, maybe for me, there's an element that with my kind of clients and my customers in clinical practice, that there might, I can answer questions on the fly with a little bit more ease. But if I can't get to answer the phone in the first instance, in that first opportunity, I'm sure is it within 10 seconds or something you answer a call?
We aim to answer a call on the second ring. A ring lasts about 3 seconds. So it's about 6 seconds.
And I've seen that in action because I've been to the Genie's HQ as well. And there's no way I could answer a phone that quickly. If I'm sat with a patient and the phone rings, it's like, excuse me, do you mind if I get this? It's degloving, it's washing hands, it's picking the phone up. But by that time they've gone. So having somebody take that call is immensely valuable.
Yeah. And not only that, but it then means that you can concentrate on your patient that you've got in clinic with you at that one point in time. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I pay someone for a service, I want them to have all of their attention focused on me.
Yeah, especially if they're holding a scalpel.
Yeah, always helps.
Yeah, I think and that's a really good point, and it always brings me back to what's the best person for that job.
Yeah.
And I'm as a podiatrist, my job is to treat patients. It's not necessarily to take calls. Yeah, I can do it, and I'm pretty good on the phone, but it's like accounts. I don't like doing accounts. It's not in fact, if you ever chatted to the bookkeeper I had in the business, she wanted to pull most of my hair out for the way I left my accounts, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, I think you're right. It's being able to focus on the things which are important and focus on that person and give them 100% of your attention.
I mean, let's be honest, no one goes into business to do all of that boring stuff. No one goes into business to answer the phones. You went into business because you're a specialist in podiatry. That's what you do, and that's why you went into business, because that's what you wanted to do. You didn't want to spend all your time answering the phones. We're slightly odd. We enjoy talking to people on the phone. So we like doing all of that stuff that people don't enjoy.
I think it's interesting as well when you're talking about that. I remember I got this comment quite a lot off patients when they come in to see me. So a new patient, they book in through you, you put them onto the system, onto Clinico as I use then, and they'd come in and see me, and they would say, "Oh, your receptionist is lovely." And I'd have to say to them, well, actually, I don't have a receptionist. That's somebody who's based, 80 miles away from here in a call centre in Northampton. They go, really? Oh, they were lovely. And it was, which is testament to the job that you do, but it was also testament to the fact, I remember saying this to Jackie, and I've said it to you as well, that it felt like having a team member that I could rely on. I could call up, I could change things. There was regular communication. It actually felt like having somebody within the business, and that was really valuable. But patients telling me that, oh, your receptionist was lovely. She was brilliant. I spoke to her on the phone, and she was great. She sorted it out for me, and it was such a weight off my shoulders. Amazing.
Well, that's it. And we never say we are not experts in podiatry. We are not podiatrists, but we know as much as you would expect a receptionist to know. So we know, for example, the questions to ask. So if it's if someone wants to book in for like a biomechanical type of thing, it's asking about where the pain's coming from. Is it a nail pain? Is it a muscular pain? And getting that kind of information from them, and that's what we're experts in, is doing it in such a way so they don't even realise they're telling us. We're just having a chat with them, we're just having a conversation with them, and then you've got all of that information so that you can then go and do what you need to do.
Yeah, and I know as well, if there was anything where there was a bit more of a query, you could pass it on to me, and that was good as well. Instead of it being an answer phone message where people, I can't come to the phone right now, I'll call you back as soon as I can. It was the patient speaks to someone and they say, okay, that's a very specific inquiry. What we'll do is we'll get Dave to call you back, or we'll get X person to call you back, but they're in clinic at the moment. And it was being able to explain that situation. An answer phone message doesn't explain, well, it does explain it, but it doesn't give you that kind of two-way communication. And that was brilliant as well. That was really valuable.
It's a phrase that we use an awful lot, which is setting customers' expectations. So if we can say to them that the person you need to speak to is in clinic at the moment, they are free in a couple of hours' time. And again, because we can see your diary, we can see when you're free. So we can say, look, Dave's in clinic at the moment and he's in clinic all the way up until about 3 o'clock, but he has got a space at 3, so he'll probably call you back after then. It just sets their expectations so they feel looked after. And that's what you want at the end of the day, isn't it? You want your customers to feel looked after. You want your patients to have that confidence.
And because in business, it's more than just being good at what you do. It is that whole customer experience stuff around the edges. There's I don't know whether you've heard the statistics. I used this in the presentation I did earlier this year. And I'm going to try and get this right, even with my cold riddled brain. I'm going to try and get this right. 86% of your customers will pay 25% more for your services with an amazing customer experience.
Yeah.
And that always kind of rings for me, because it's like, well, actually, it's not about being necessarily better as a practitioner. It's not about having the newfangled equipment. It's about keeping in touch with your patients and offering them an amazing amount of service.
Yeah.
So not just come in, see me, I treat you, off you go. It's following them up. It's almost loving and caring about them, which sounds a bit weird in a business sense, but that's the kind of thing which I always think about is, that people come into almost like you're coming into your family. How would you look after members of your family, and doing the same for your customers and clients?
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes a big difference.
And it does make a huge difference. And it's one of the reasons why the majority of our calls, if it's just a simple inquiry call, it's a 45-second call. If it's a booking call, it's about 2 minutes long, something like that. And people think, what kind of customer service experience can you get in 2 minutes? We train an awful lot. We spend so much time doing training courses, reading books about customer service, training in customer service, to make sure that we can get the best experience possible for your customers in essentially what is a tiny portion of contact. But we are the first point of contact, and so we have to be 100% in what we offer, and that's why we spend so much time training our brand new genies, bless them. They don't even get loose on the phones until they've been sort of 4 weeks with us, kind of thing, which for a lot of people that seems a little bit excessive, but for us, I would give them more training time if I could.
Yeah, it's I suppose a difficult balance. It's in the same way as podiatry. We don't let our student podiatrists loose on patients we let them loose on each other initially because they hurt each other.
Yeah.
That's fine. But long standing, you know, they probably go a good 2 months, maybe even longer now, before they actually get to physically hands on with the patient.
Yeah.
But it's amazing, isn't it? The length of time you can take to train someone up. But actually, it's well worth it.
Absolutely.
What's the funniest call you've ever had?
Oh, in general or overall?
I don't know. Let's go for both.
We have a particular client who they are lovely. They're really, really nice. But their company name is Hire a Hubby.
Okay.
And I'm sure you can imagine some of the calls that we've had from that.
Oh, yeah.
They're a DIY specialist. So, but yes, we've had some very interesting calls from that. But from a podiatry sense, love the nail fungal calls when people describe what kind of their nails look like. It's a sort of perverted kind of curiosity, really.
It's interesting. I was having a chat. We've got some building work going on at the moment, which is it's down in the cellar, so it's quiet. And I was chatting to Mark, our builder, and we were talking about, you know, I couldn't do what he does. I could not do any kind of building work out in the cold. My fingers, my hands are just destroying me. So I was talking to him about some of the stuff I do, and he was just like, no, not interested in it at all. Because you say the way that people describe the problems they've got over the phone. Now, I could think back to some of the conversations I've had where people have described stuff they've got. And for me, I'm like, oh, wow, that's brilliant. Okay, yeah, I know what you mean because, you know, I know the language you're using. I know the kind of stuff you're looking at. But if that's not your primary thing, some of it will be like, oh, I'm not sure about that. At least I'm not sending you pictures.
Yes, exactly.
I've had that before. I've had pictures emailed into me before, but that's a whole other thing.
Oh dear.
What would you say at the G's? What would you say is your kind of specialist market? Do you have a specialist market for your clients?
Our specialist market is anyone that we have to book appointments for.
Okay.
So, which is why podiatry works so well for us. And podiatrists tend to be private clinics, so you have one, maybe two people working on their own. And it works really, really well from that perspective because it's people that we know that we can add value to. I've done some number crunching, and if you hire a receptionist, and this is 35 hours a week, and they're over 25 because national minimum wage, and then you've got your employer's NI that you've got to add on, and tax, and then paying for downtime, for holiday cover, and for things like that, you're looking at about £1,500 a month. And that's a full-time receptionist. You can pay for the genius to cover your phones for, we will do up to 66 hours a week, I think. There is a small extra charge for that. But you can pay for us to cover your phones and 3 people sitting there, a minimum of 3 people at any one time, waiting to take your calls, and for £128 a month, I think it is at the moment. That's our starting rate.
128?
Yeah.
128?
It obviously depends on the volume of calls and things like that. One of the things that we do at the moment is we're doing a free month. So your first month is free. And we spend that month, one of the things that I do, because I'm a little bit of a number nerd, so I'll look at the numbers, and you and I have had many conversations about numbers and sort of where it's worthwhile and where we can cut and where we can increase and that type of thing. So the first month, I'll look at the calls, I'll look at your figures, and I'll say, right, this is the package that you should be on, and we'll go from there. But as I say, it starts from, for a booking package, from £128. Compare that to 1,500. It's a, you know.
Well, if you let's work it out. So, say, pull some figures out of the air. If you've got an average clinic might have an appointment charge of £40 for a routine appointment, you only need to book in 3 of those. I know 4 of those, and you've more than covered the cost of it for a month. That's 4 calls. Yeah. And when you start to look at that kind of exponential amount, I think I worked out that it was something like 10 new patients a month covered the service. And
yes.
If I could, on a long day, my long day was always a Wednesday, if I had 7 patients call and none of them booked in because I couldn't get to the phone, I'd lost 7 patients. But if you took the calls and you got those 7 patients in, I was 7/10 or 70% of the way through paying for my package for the entire month in that one day. And it made an absolutely massive difference having that knowledge it was going on. And I remember, because we did have many conversations about I say we have many conversations about my package, but obviously it's the call package, so that's not that's my dirty brain going somewhere. But we had many conversations about the volume of calls. You, knowing what you did, you estimated it beautifully. What did I do? I underestimated it massively, because A, you don't want to spend the money, and B, you don't think you take that many calls. And if you were to survey it, and if you were to kind of set a timer and measure every time you're on the phone, the number of minutes and hours and weeks over your career that you would spend answering the phone is ridiculous. And if I'm billing at £100 an hour, but then I'm having to take calls for an hour a week, that's £100, which I could have, which I'm losing. So it's a no-brainer for me to go and consider that. And having that free month as well means that you draw people in, and once they've got you, they realise how good you are, and they never let you go.
Exactly. Well, that's what we find as well. We've actually find that an awful lot of our clients stay with us for 3 or 4 years until they've grown to the point where it actually makes more sense for them to have a person on site, or they've grown to the point where they've got a lot of podiatrists under them, and so it makes more sense to have a receptionist helping greet on site. But even then, so many of our clients will keep us on as a background. You don't have to have your phones coming to us all the time. It's literally, you can have it as, it's up to you as and when you divert your phones to us. You can have them so that it's an overflow. BT, for example, set up their overflow at 3 rings. So it would ring on your phone for 3 rings and then come over to us. So it gives, even if you've got a receptionist, if your receptionist has nipped off to the loo, or she's dealing with someone that's come in, then it gives them the opportunity to think, I'm focusing on that one job, I don't have to worry about the phones. That's done and dusted. Or if they're sick, if they're on holiday, because it happens, absolutely happens all the time.
In fact, when I came to visit, I know there's a podiatrist I know who uses you, quite local to you. And I was going to drop in and say hello to her, but she wasn't around because she was on holiday, and you were taking her calls while she was away. Exactly. And it was great, because it's that kind of seamless transition between the two. And if you're looking for out of hours, you're looking, someone who decides at 7 o'clock at night they want to book a podiatry appointment, which does happen. And when I was in clinic, the number of times I would have messages at 7, 8 o'clock at night of people looking for appointments, which can be quite stressful. Your own business is 24/7, 365, or 366 on a leap year, and you want to have some space from it. But when you've got people contacting you at 7, 8 o'clock at night, you don't get that space. So having somebody else who can professionally deal with those is great.
Exactly. Yeah. And the other thing that we offer as well is, which not many people do when they're doing bookings, is a holiday cover. An awful lot of call answering services, and I want to make the distinction there between call handling and call answering.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of call answering services that will offer holiday cover, or short-term cover. So you pay for a couple of days or whatever, and that's it. But we do the full service for you for holiday cover. So you still get the same sort of briefing call. I'll spend half an hour, an hour chatting with you, getting to know your business, getting to know the way it works, getting to know your system. We will book all of your appointments in for you. And that means, as a sort of single person in a business, if you take holiday for 2 weeks, not only are you losing the revenue for those 2 weeks, but you're also losing the revenue for the following 2 weeks when you come back, because you've not been able to book in. So your order book is, your appointment diary is a lot lower than it would have been normally. So even if you only use holiday cover, it means that you can at least go away for 2 weeks and relax in the knowledge that when you come back, you're going to be straight where you were before, without having to worry about that 2 week slump. And people tend to book about 2 weeks in advance.
Yeah, I think podiatry, it depends on the individuals. There's a balance there. Some people ring up and decide they want an appointment within 2 minutes. Other people are quite happy to book 6 to 8 weeks in advance. So it's interesting. You got me thinking about one of the things which I would have done differently. And not you. It would have been with me. Is I have an amazing phone number which I've had for the best part of probably about 17 years, and I love my phone number, and I don't plan to change it. And of course, that was the phone number I used for the business beforehand, which meant that people would use my phone number on occasions instead of calling through to you. So the advice I would give to people there is either change your phone when you go call handling, or have a separate phone for your business and then just put it on divert when you go call handling, because then everything comes through to the people who can deal with it a lot better.
Always. When people are because we get an awful lot of, I talk to an awful lot of people that are at the very, very start of their journeys. And the 2 pieces of advice I always give them is, one, even if it's a VoIP number, one of the internet numbers, virtual numbers, that's the word I was looking for, virtual. If it's a virtual number or a separate mobile number, don't use your own personal number. And 2, it's TPS. TPS is the telephone preference service. As soon as you register as a business, or register a new address, or register a new phone number, that phone number will then appear on all of those lists out there. So get that number on the government service, the telephone preference service, and it cuts down your sales calls that you receive by about 80%. Not all of them, but by about 80%.
I remember being told that at the very beginning when we had our initial conversation was, register for TPS, because otherwise you can't be liable for any sales calls which come in. If we're registered, it means, if a sales call does come in, it's not counted as part of the package. But otherwise, you could end up spending twice as much just dealing with sales calls, and you get them all the time. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
The current figures from BT, because we use BT for an awful lot of stats because they're the market leaders in this type of thing. And they did some research a couple of years ago, and they said that it takes about 20 minutes to get back into doing what it was that you were doing before you got interrupted by a phone call. And to get interrupted by someone trying to sell you PPI or, refund on your mortgage insurance or something like that. It's just the worst. Absolutely. So they are the 2 bits of advice I always give to people. Make sure your phone number is different to your personal number, and register with TPS. Yeah,
because I went, in fact, it was another one from the same group where I met the Genies. I don't think they're a preferred supplier now. It was Boosh. I think it was Boosh 365. So no, it's Jeremy now, isn't it? It's Jeremy who does the calls. Jeremy, forgotten his name. It'll come back to me later. Lovely guy. But I actually had a conversation with them and actually had a VoIP phone. And the great thing about the voice over IP phone was that I could pick it up out of the clinic, I could take it home and I could plug it in, and the router at home, and it was the same phone number.
Yes.
And I soon got wise to the fact I didn't want it at home, so I took it back to the clinic and left it there. But that made a huge difference.
Yeah.
That thing you talked about, that kind of 20 minutes to get back into something is a really interesting one. There's almost a lag. You have to warm up. It's like going to it's doing any kind of exercise. You warm up to it, you get into the flow of it, and then you cool down. And if you get interrupted during that period, you've got to go back through the whole process again. And it's interesting in podiatry clinics, one of the things you find, and I found this working in A&E as a nurse as well, is you don't know what's coming through the door generally.
Yeah.
So you might be doing one particular job and then suddenly you've got to flip to something else. And in that environment, it works. But in a clinic, it can be quite hard. So an hour's gap to do whatever, for me, I might not get much done because I'm still on the cool down from before. And then I'm on the warm up for the next bit. And it's very hard to flip between different things. So you get disturbed. It's always going to be a bit of a problem.
Yeah, always.
So what else do you guys do apart from call handling? Because I'm sure you do some other stuff as well, don't you?
We do just about everything. The only thing I haven't figured out how to do is to get a cup of tea to you. Weirdly enough, I could get you a beer via Uber Eats or via Deliveroo. I can get you a beer, but I cannot get you a cup of tea yet.
Oh, that's just what you've got. I mean, you've got cookies to me before as well.
Yeah.
I had a giant cookie early this year, which was brilliant. I love that giant cookie. It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting.
But
I found I remember I still remember the conversation I had, and I know the girl I had the conversation with in 2015 at the EC event I think she's left now anyway. And I remember at that point me going through the whole, I don't need this, I can manage it on my own, it's going to be an expense. It won't help me at all. I can do everything I need to do. That was it. And thankfully I didn't have the guts to say, no, don't put me on your mailing list. So there was a couple of follow-ups, and I think it was July 2016 when I finally took the plunge. I was chatting to Jackie about this when I came to visit, that I finally took the plunge and went, okay, let's give it a go and see how it works. And you don't know what you don't know. And you don't realize the importance of something until you have it. And as soon as I remember the first day it went live, and the number of phone calls that I received just literally, boom, dropped. And I remember thinking, this is brilliant. I could do more of this. And the only reason I don't work with you guys now and have you taking calls, because I don't need volume. I don't have the volume of calls at the moment anyway. Most of the stuff I do is online, but because I sold the clinic. Otherwise, we would have still been continuing to work together. And it's sad obviously selling the clinic, but it was such a valuable part of what I had in the clinic, and it made such a difference to what I did that I wouldn't have been without it at all.
And the thing is as well is you don't realise how much the phone calls, how much headspace phone calls take up. And once you get rid of that, you suddenly sort of think, oh, I've got all of this free now. And it gives you that option, doesn't it? It gives you the opportunity to move forward with your plans in a way that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do if you're constantly being held back and pulled back into the more day-to-day side of things. Yeah.
It's that difference between, and the distinction is always working in the business and working on the business.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when we take phone calls, we think that we're taking phone calls, we're working on the business, and we're not working in the business. And that distinction is absolutely massive, and it's a really, really, really important distinction. And there's so much in business which takes up headspace anyway. I can recount many stories of waking up at 4 in the morning, before going, waking up and not being able to get back to sleep for the next couple of hours, before going to the gym, before going to work, worrying about what I had to do and what I had to get done. And it's a real thing, and it causes physiological symptoms and anxiety and depression, all this kind of stuff which goes with it. And that's not to say that being in business isn't fantastic, because it is, but there's a dark side to that amazing stuff too. And one of the other things I did actually as well, in 2016, I took you guys on, which was great. Later on in 2016, I actually took a virtual assistant on as well. Although Although as a virtual assistant, she lived around the corner from the clinic, which was, so she was a virtually present assistant. But again, that headspace made a massive, massive difference, because I had so many notes which I was already on Clinico, then I had so many notes which I needed to go through. I had so many patients I needed to check up on to actually get them back into that system and just check on how they were and provide that customer experience. And I had a VA who could do it for me.
Yeah.
So we would go through, and actually she would get in touch with all the patients and bring people back in if they needed to, and just check on they're okay and do all that kind of stuff. I would have the ability, if I got policies and procedures which I needed to do, I could dictate them and I could send them to her for transcription, or GP letters to patients, letters referring people on. Those kind of things were great. And being able to dictate it, send it off to someone, have it done, was fantastic. And it meant it was less pressure for me. And in the same way with you guys, that if I had somebody who called wanting, a change of appointment, or I got an email, I could email you and say, can you arrange this for me? It was just took loads of pressure off my shoulders.
I mean, it's something that we do now, because a lot of our clients have actually asked us to. So we've now got the VA side of the business. So we will do the same type of things. We'll do update people's databases for them if they want us to. We've also got someone that can help build a database, which is quite nice, because it uses Capsule and MailChimp. And one of our really, really clever people here has figured out how to make them talk to each other and do all of the things in the background. So it's almost like an Infusionsoft, but not at the same level. So okay. Absolutely, for those kind of people that are starting out, and even if you've not got something like Clinico, it can work in the background with a Google Calendar or something like that. So if you are at the very early days and you really don't want to invest in something clinic specific software, then we've got those kinds of options that we can help people with as well.
Yeah, because I know Clinico has an integration. I was going to say interaction, but it's integration with MailChimp anyway.
Yes.
Because I used that before, and it integrates with Xero and various other things too. So
I mean, for podiatrists, I would always recommend that you go with a clinic-specific software, because that's what they're built for. They are built for you guys.
Yeah.
So, and the software exists out there, and it's not that expensive.
No, it's like anything, isn't it? It's an investment. It's not a cost. It's a language thing more than anything else. So, oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. So where can we find the Office Genie?
Well, if you Google the Office Genie, we are pretty much everywhere. The website is www.theofficegenie.co.uk. We're on Facebook. We don't do too much on Twitter because I don't like Twitter. We're on LinkedIn. So we're almost everywhere. And you can, I'm sure you can see, anywhere you see that little logo, that's where we are. We are the Genies, and everything we do is magic and sparkly.
Oh, look at that. They got a little tagline. So I was sold on it. I was very resistant to it in 2015. I was sold on it in 2016. I would have still been with you now had I still had the business. So I highly recommend you guys, and I'm massively grateful for everything you did for me in my business as well. And I know my patients loved you as well, which was great. And it was brilliant to have that. So a huge thank you to you. And I think anyone who is watching this, who is at that point where they go, I'm a bit annoyed at taking my calls, I need to do something, they need to get in touch and have a conversation with you and see where it goes.
Absolutely. And we are more than happy, even if people are not entirely sure, I would always say, give me a call. I'm more than happy to as you can probably tell, I like talking. I do like talking. So just give me a call, and I'm more than happy to chat through anything with anyone. Even if it's not specifically us, even if they want to phone up and say, look, I'm thinking about using this company. Have you heard any good things or bad things about them? I'll talk to people. I don't mind. I
Because
would rather.
you know others in the industry, don't you? And I know we've had this conversation before we start recording, that there's other call services out there, and I talk to a lot of my podiatry colleagues and foot health colleagues, and they use a variety of different things. And it's like anything, isn't it? There's not one solution for everyone. It's finding the people who you gel with and who you get on with and who you have a really kind of good relationship with. So that's really good. I like that.
And I would much rather that people use someone than no one, because at the end of the day, it's all about getting your calls answered and getting the best service for your patients.
100%. That is a brilliant way to finish it. So thank you very much. That is amazing. You're a superstar. Thank you.